Boom! When the fist covered with purple gold dragon scales collided with the thunderous giant hand descending upon them, a loud bang rang out, and the space seemed to collapse in that instant, with black cracks of space spreading out. Brilliant golden light and thunder surged forward like thousands of giant serpents, devouring the surrounding space, while the powerful beings nearby, who had been close to the area, hurriedly retreated, their eyes filled with uncertainty as they looked toward the place where Mu Chen and Lu Sui were clashing. Mu Chen is actually going head-to-head with Lu Sui. Many powerful figures were shocked, clearly not expecting Mu Chen to dare confront Lu Sui directly, even after losing his spirit array advantage. However, their shock soon turned into seriousness, as they noticed that in the collapsed space, the wild and unmatched thunder didn't seem to have the overwhelming power they had expected, and the seemingly weaker golden light wasn't being destroyed as ruthlessly as they had imagined. From a distance, Xun'er, who was facing Mo Feng, also noticed the situation and his expression shifted slightly, becoming much darker. This Mu Chen was indeed troublesome. I told you, if you think Mu Chen can be easily dealt with, you're too naive. Mo Feng said lightly. Xun'er, upon hearing this, smiled dismissively and said, Mo, you're too eager. Lu Sui isn't as weak as you think, and Mu Chen still has a considerable gap compared to him. Mo Feng did not respond directly. His hands were slightly lowered, his expression calm. He and Xun'er were merely facing off, not making a move yet, because both of them knew that once they truly clashed, even if they won, it could easily end in a Pyrrhic victory. Additionally, there were other powerful figures around, watching closely. If either of them were gravely injured, those other forces would undoubtedly take advantage. Xun'er's goal was to delay Mo Feng and give Lu Sui enough time to deal with Mu Chen. Similarly, Mo Feng, who had confidence in Mu Chen, planned to keep a close watch on Xun'er to prevent him from making a surprise attack on Mu Chen. If that happened, even with some hidden cards, it would be hard for Mu Chen to withstand the combined forces of two 7th-grade Supremes. Both stood still, their figures unmoving as mountains. However, the occasional flash of cold light in their eyes betrayed the killing intent rising within them. Boom. Meanwhile, while Xun'er and Mo Feng were facing off, in the distance, the violent thunder and golden light continued to wreak havoc, shattering the space. After the thunderous giant hand, Lu Sui's face had already become somewhat twisted. He glared at the scene before him, his eyes filled with rage. He never imagined that this seemingly decisive punch of his would not instantly destroy Mu Chen. Like an insect trying to block a cart. Overestimating yourself. Lu Sui roared through gritted teeth, his spiritual power surging out like a flood, and the thunderous light under his palm exploded wildly. The air around seemed to ignite. The punch infused with thunderous light suddenly increased in power, as though it would crush the golden light in one blow. Lu Sui knew that the thundercloud platform was too chaotic right now, so the battle couldn't drag on. It had to end with a thunderous strike to conserve spiritual energy. If he consumed too much, even if he won, other powerful figures would either spot and move to reduce his ranking. Thus, he had to end Mu Chen as quickly as possible. Thunderlight surged toward him, and Mu Chen's gaze sharpened. Yet, instead of retreating, he advanced. The veins on his right arm twisted like coiling dragons, trembling with every movement, releasing terrifying strength with each tremor. The true dragon mark on his arm became even clearer, and the dragon claws covering his 5 fingers grew thicker and more tangible. A vast aura began to emanate from him. Breathing in deeply, the golden light in Mu Chen's eyes flickered. He could feel the immense, tidal strength from his blood and flesh flooding into his fists. As the power in his fists became increasingly terrifying, the golden light around him gradually began to converge. Lu Sui noticed this and was momentarily pleased, believing that Mu Chen would soon collapse. However, his expression shifted in an instant as he saw Mu Chen slowly throw out another golden fist. That punch was so heavy it seemed as though a giant dragon was coiled around it. Boom! When Mu Chen's fist, covered in purple gold dragon claws, struck the thunderous giant hand again, Lu Sui's face suddenly changed dramatically. Because he sensed the terrifying power contained in Mu Chen's punch, it was stronger than anything he had expected. Crack. The thunderous giant hand shattered instantly, cracks forming across it in an instant. The force was so brutal that Lu Sui didn't even have time to react, in the blink of an eye. The golden, dragon-claw-wrapped fist of Mu Chun smashed the thunderous giant hand into pieces. Golden light erupted, and the thunderous glow dissipated. Lu Sui staggered back in a disarray, his face alternately turning pale and green. His eyes filled with astonishment. He never imagined that Mu Chen's punch would be so powerful. That kind of power was far beyond what a 6th grade supreme should possess. Mu Chen's punch not only shattered his thunderous giant hand, but the terrifying force that followed almost scattered his internal spiritual energy. Damn it, this guy's power. Lu Sui gritted his teeth, his eyes flashing with a cold glint. He retreated quickly, while also trying to suppress the turbulent spiritual energy inside his body. It seemed he couldn't face Mu Chun with brute force anymore. He had underestimated him earlier. Whoosh. However, just as Lu Sui planned to retreat and use other means to deal with Mu Chun, the latter did not give him any time to in the blink of an eye. Mu Chen's figure appeared like a ghost before him. Then, the purple gold dragon fist was swung once again with immense force. Lu Sui's expression changed. He quickly raised his arms to block, and the wild lightning energy coiled around his arms, forming a faint lightning shield. Bang! The golden dragon fist struck down. The lightning shield shattered immediately, and Lu Sui was sent flying again. As soon as his body flew back, Mu Chun, like a relentless force, closed in on him. His golden dragon fists hammered down one after another, giving Lu Sui no time to breathe. Boom! 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 In just a dozen breaths, Mu Chun landed over 10 punches. Every golden dragon fist sent Lu Sui tumbling back. The overwhelming spiritual energy that had once radiated from Lu Sui was gradually dispersed with each punch. Anyone could see that Lu Sui, due to his earlier carelessness, had lost the initiative and was now being forced into a desperate situation by Mu Chen's relentless onslaught. If not for his strong foundation, he might have been severely wounded from this barrage alone. Even so, after desperately retreating from Mu Chen's attack range, his face had turned ashen, and blood was visible at the corner of his mouth. Looking at Mu Chen once again, his eyes were filled with horror. After those dozen punches, his previously arrogant demeanor was completely shattered by Mu Chun. The strong warriors observing the battle on the Thundercloud platform also wore grim expressions. Their eyes, once dismissive, now showed a deep sense of caution when they looked at Mu Chun. They had initially thought that Mu Chun relied solely on his spirit array to enter the body refining tower, but now they realized that his physical body was just as terrifying. That it was as strong, if not stronger, than their divine beast bodies. This guy was nothing short of a humanoid divine beast. In midair, Lu Sui's expression darkened as he stared at Mu Chun. The latter remained expressionless, but the fierce aura emanating from him made Lu Sui's heart race. Under the indifferent gaze from Mu Chen's black eyes, Lu Sui felt as though he was being watched by an ancient ferocious beast, and no matter what he did, he couldn't escape this moment. Mu Chun had become an extremely difficult opponent. Lu Sui's face turned iron gray as he gritted his teeth and said, "Mu Chun, this matter ends here. If you continue to persist, don't blame me for being ruthless. Even if I suffer heavy injuries, I'll drag you down with me." Lu Sui was a tough person. Despite the unfavorable situation, he refused to show fear, still confident that, though Mu Chen's momentum was terrifying, he could make him pay dearly if they fought for real. However, in response to Lu Sui's threat, Mu Chun merely raised his eyes. The pressure locking onto Lu Sui only intensified, growing stronger rather than weakening. Mu Chun remained expressionless. His blood and flesh, having been pushed to their limits in the battle, were almost boiling. A powerful surge of energy was gathering within him, one that could shatter space itself if left unchecked. If he didn't release this force, it would end up harming him instead. So, now that he wants to stop, it's clearly impossible. "If you can take this move, I'll let you leave," Mu Chun said indifferently. Arrogant fool. Hearing Mu Chen's words, Lu Sui was nearly driven to the brink of madness. To think he, a 6th grade supreme, was being forced into this situation by a mere human. It twisted his expression into a more sinister mask. His gaze at Chen was full of murderous intent, as if he wanted to tear him apart. "Since you seek death, I'll grant your wish." Sui roared, and in an instant, lightning exploded from his body. The thunderous storm reverberated through the heavens and earth, its oppressive force spreading everywhere. Chen, however, paid no attention to this. Taking a deep breath, the golden light in his pupils began to coalesce, faintly transforming into the shadows of a dragon and phoenix. His palms slowly tightened, then began to tremble. He could feel it. His true dragon and true phoenix marks on his body were vibrating, and that terrifying power seemed ready to tear his flesh apart. If this power wasn't released soon, it would first shatter his physical body. Chen didn't want the body he'd painstakingly refined to be destroyed, so the only option was to let Sui bear the brunt of this destructive force. Boom! The deafening sound of thunder echoed through the heavens. Sui, with a twisted expression, glared at Chen, the lightning ripples emanating from his body, each wave distorting the space around him. Although he regretted being tempted by Xun'er to target Chen, now that he had been pushed this far, there was no turning back. He made up his mind, no matter how badly he was injured, he would slay Chen here today. Otherwise, the news of this would ruin his reputation in the clan. "You're asking for death? Then die here." Sui snarled like thunder, his eyes flashing with lightning. His hands came together, rapidly forming hand seals in the lightning, and as he did, bolts of thunderous energy surged from his body, forming visible streaks of lightning that floated in front of him. These lightning marks gathered quickly, and within moments, a massive thunder seal, nearly 1,000 feet wide, took shape in the air. As it appeared, the thunder around it roared, a terrifying pressure emanating from it. The other prodigies on the thundercloud platform noticed the overwhelming power surge and froze, whispering in awe. "Is that the Apocalypse Thunder Seal? It's a great perfection divine art." Sui has been forced to this point by Chen. A great perfection divine art. Such a move was a trump card even for these prodigies. Yet no one expected Sui to be pushed into using it against Chen, who was merely a 6th grade supreme. Far off, Xun'er glanced over with surprise, but quickly smiled. Sui's counterattack should be enough to turn the tide. Even Xun'er, with his 7th grade supreme strength, would have to take this seriously. Chen's power was impressive, but he wouldn't be able to withstand Sui's full assault. On the opposite side, Feng's expression stiffened, but he didn't panic. That he knew his only role now was to stall Xun'er, while Sui would have to handle Chen alone. That if he couldn't, then Chen would have to retreat from the body refining tower. "Chen, I hope you can hold on. This is all I can do." Boom! As Xun'er and Feng spoke, the lightning in front of Sui surged even more violently. The enormous thunder seal quickly took form, each wave of lightning fracturing the space around them. Sui stood behind the thunder seal, looking down at Chen with a cold, murderous gaze. This technique was originally meant for dealing with other prodigies who could compete for the last 5 spots, but now, Chen had forced him to use it. This would make others wary of him in the future, losing the advantage of surprise. He had to kill Chen here, this culprit who had forced him to this point. No matter the cost, below the distant thunder seal, golden light surged around Chen's body. His originally pitch-black eyes turned a brilliant golden hue, as if forged from pure gold. Exuding an indescribable aura of authority, he didn't look up at the massive thunder seal, but instead lowered his gaze to his arms. This moment, the veins on his arms trembled like twisting dragons, and his flesh and blood boiled, feeling as if it might melt away. His hand slowly clenched into a fist. He could sense that the true dragon and true phoenix marks within him were slightly vibrating at the same time, as if they were eager to unleash their terrifying power. Taking a deep breath, Chen lifted his head, his gaze becoming sharper as he looked up at the vast thunder seal that filled his vision. A low, deep dragon's roar echoed from within his body, reverberating through his blood and flesh. On his right arm, the true dragon mark twisted and coiled, and a claw, real as if it were a physical object, slowly extended, perfectly aligning with Chen's fingers once again. The same time, the true phoenix mark on his back began to stir. It slithered along his skin, and finally appeared on his left arm. The true phoenix slowly unfurled its wings, and the violet golden feathers aligned perfectly with Mu Chen's left hand. True dragon on the right, true phoenix on the left. Mu Chen's arms now radiated with violet golden light, looking as if forged from purple gold iron, possessing an indestructible and terrifying strength. His flesh and blood in both arms trembled violently. Boom! As the true dragon and true phoenix manifested on Mu Chen's arms, the energy gathered by Lu Sui in the sky reached its peak. He glared ferociously at Mu Chen below and, without hesitation, slammed his palm downward. Apocalypse, Thunder Seal. Boom! When Lu Sui's palm struck down, the thunder seal exploded with a deafening sound, and the thunderous roars of lightning were immediately suppressed. The thunder seal transformed into a vast sea of lightning, shattering the void and descending upon Mu Chen at lightning speed. The prodigies around them, who had already retreated, hastened their escape even further, fully aware of the terrifying nature of Lu Sui's attack. They didn't want to be dragged into it. The massive thunder seal descended, casting a shadow of destruction. In the center of that shadow stood Mu Chen's seemingly insignificant figure. Under the watchful eyes of many, Mu Chen raised his head, gazing at the descending thunder seal. He then slightly closed his eyes, and the violet golden light on his arms grew even more dazzling. Roar! The sounds of dragon and phoenix roars reverberated within Mu Chen's body, shaking his flesh and bones, which in turn caused his momentum to rise exponentially, eventually reaching its peak. Golden light erupted from his eyes as though it were a tangible force. He then lifted his right arm and threw a punch. True Dragon Fist. Brilliant golden light shot out, forming a violet golden dragon. The golden dragon roared, its dragon's cry shaking the heavens and earth. True Phoenix Palm. As Mu Chen's right fist struck, his left palm followed, smashing forward with a resounding phoenix cry. Golden light erupted as the golden phoenix spread its wings, creating a golden storm as it flew. The golden dragon and golden phoenix became two radiant arcs of light, soaring into the sky. They intertwined, as if dragon and phoenix were calling out in harmony, their golden light shaking the very fabric of space, directly shattering the void. On the thundercloud platform, all the prodigies were shaken. They stared in horror at the intertwining golden dragon and phoenix, from which an overwhelming pressure spread, making their blood tremble in their veins. Within the golden dragon and phoenix formed by the golden light, there was an unmistakable aura of true dragon and true phoenix. How could Mu Chen's attack contain the essence of the true dragon and true phoenix? One of the prodigies gasped, his face filled with disbelief. The true dragon and true phoenix. Even among the Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan, top-tier divine beast races, are king-like beings. It's impossible for ordinary members of these clans to possess such power, let alone a mere human. Lu Sui, too, was shaken for a moment, but soon, a murderous gleam surged in his eyes, and no matter how Mu Chen's attack contained the essence of the true dragon and true phoenix, it would not sway him. Instead, it only solidified his determination to kill. Such an opponent, now that it had been set, must be eliminated swiftly. There could be no lingering threats. Crush him. Lu Sui let out a low growl, and the thunder seal, which was pressing down towards Mu Chen, became even more imposing. The thunderous light crackled violently, shaking the heavens and earth, causing the surroundings to tremble. Under the watchful eyes of countless trembling gazes, the thunder seal descended, while the golden dragon and phoenix transformed into a golden light rainbow that shot straight up, in the end. The two collided with a thunderous explosion in the high sky. Boom! At the moment of impact, a blinding light erupted, causing everyone's eyes to sting, forcing them to squint slightly. In that instant of collision, Lu Sui's face underwent a dramatic change, as he saw that the thunder seal, which was pressing down, had unexpectedly slowed down, and its movement gradually became stagnant. Blocked. Lu Sui's pupils contracted. Boom. Just as he was in disbelief, the thunder seal suddenly trembled. There was a cracking sound, and fine cracks rapidly appeared on the surface of the seal. In just a few breaths, the cracks spread across the thunder seal, and golden light burst out from the fissures. Lu Sui's complexion rapidly turned pale, and without hesitation, he immediately retreated at full speed. Boom! Just as Lu Sui was retreating, the massive thunder seal exploded with a loud bang. Thunderlight scattered everywhere, and a golden beam shot straight towards Lu Sui, enveloping him in its glow. Within that golden light, the golden dragon roared and the golden phoenix cried out. The faint aura that originated from the true dragon and phoenix froze Lu Sui's blood in his veins. Bang! The speed of the golden dragon and phoenix light was so fast that Lu Sui couldn't evade it. He could only watch helplessly as the golden light slammed into his body. In the instant of the impact, blood spurted wildly from Lu Sui's mouth. His chest seemed to cave in, and his body was violently blasted away. The spiritual energy surrounding him rapidly withered, clearly indicating he had been heavily injured. After dealing a severe blow to Lu Sui, the golden light rainbow exhausted its energy and disintegrated into a sea of golden light, scattering in the air. Lu Sui's face was deathly pale as he clutched his chest and stared blankly at the golden light scattering through the sky. Whoosh! However, while he was still dazed, a ghostly figure suddenly shot up from below, its sharp wind locking onto Lu Sui's head, exuding a murderous intent. Sensing this killing intent, Lu Sui's heart instantly chilled. He knew that it was Mu Chen making his move. He hadn't expected the latter to be so ruthless, showing no intention of giving him any breathing room. In his current injured state, if he continued to be entangled, there was a real possibility that Mu Chen would kill him right here. "You bastard!" Lu Sui trembled, both shocked and enraged, but in the end, he could only let out a furious roar and quickly retreat, unwillingly withdrawing from the thundercloud platform. Whiz! As Lu Sui exited the thundercloud platform, a flash of light appeared around him, and his figure immediately vanished, clearly being kicked out of the body refining tower, losing his chance to proceed further. "Mu Chen, I swear I'll tear you to pieces." As Lu Sui was expelled from the body refining tower, his enraged and fearful roar echoed through the air. Mu Chen hovered in midair, his indifferent gaze following Lu Sui's disappearance. He didn't care at all about the threats Lu Sui had left behind. He simply turned and slowly descended back to the thundercloud platform. As Mu Chen landed, the area fell into a profound silence. The other prodigies looked at him with a mixture of awe and wariness. Mu Chen raised his head, his indifferent gaze sweeping over the other prodigies, eventually settling on Xun'er, who was confronting Mo Feng. Xun'er's complexion alternated between pale and greenish, and Mu Chen's calm voice rang out. "Is there anyone else willing to offer me some advice?" Mu Chen stood with his hands behind his back, his voice carrying across the thundercloud platform. It wasn't loud, but there was a chilling aura that spread from his words. Several prodigies, who had been eyeing him with hostile intent, exchanged looks and then slowly retreated. At this moment, Mu Chen seemed not only unweakened after the battle, but even more dangerous than before. They all understood now that Mu Chen had reached a level of momentum that could no longer be challenged. One of the 5 spots, without a doubt, would belong to him. As Mu Chen's final words spread across the thundercloud platform, there was no reply. Outside the body refining tower, the atmosphere was similarly dead silent, almost eerily so. Everyone was staring in shock at the light screen, their eyes fixed on the spot where Lu Sui had disappeared earlier, as if they had yet to recover from the outcome. Earlier, when Lu Sui unleashed that terrifying attack, most of the people present had already assumed the outcome of the clash was decided. But who could have expected that Mu Chen would once again reverse the situation, sending the seemingly victorious Lu Sui flying out of the body refining tower with a single kick? After a long moment of stunned silence, the strong warriors from various races finally came to their senses. Their expressions became serious as they realized that Mu Chen had not even used any spirit arrays. He had relied solely on his 6th grade supreme strength to defeat Lu Sui, a 7th grade supreme. While it was partly due to the latter's overconfidence, this still demonstrated the terrifying power of Mu Chen.at. The place where the Heavenly Rock clan stood, Lu Qing's delicate face turned pale as she gazed at the slender figure in the light screen. She seemed to swallow nervously, and for the first time, a hint of fear appeared in her eyes. At this point, If she still regarded Mu Chen as just an ordinary 6th grade supreme, that would be her own foolishness. Given the combat strength he had shown, and with the addition of those powerful spirit arrays, even Xun'er would likely find it hard to gain the upper hand. Earlier, she had repeatedly mocked and belittled the Nine Nether, but now, it seemed she had truly lost face. This was evident from the sarcastic and mocking looks she received from those around her. How can this Mu Chen be so strong? Xun'er, who had been defeated by Mu Chen earlier, spoke with a solemn expression. He had once believed Mu Chen could only rely on spirit arrays to contend with powerful opponents. But now, he had been utterly stunned by how Mu Chen had ruthlessly defeated Lu Sui without even using spirit arrays. It seems only Big Brother Xun'er can handle him. Another powerful member of the Heavenly Rock clan nodded. Lu Qing lightly nodded her head. Regarding Mu Chen's strength, it wasn't just them who had underestimated him. Even Xun'er had probably misjudged him. This guy was truly an anomaly. Whoosh. Just as everyone outside the body refining tower was still shocked by the result Mu Chen had caused, the stone platform outside suddenly flickered with light, and a disheveled figure appeared. The moment the figure appeared, it quickly retreated, reappearing among the Thunder Crow clan's strong warriors. The figure, now visible, was none other than the pale-faced Lu Sui, his spiritual energy drained. All eyes around him immediately focused on him. Lu Sui's face turned grim. He shot a fierce glance at Mu Chen in the light screen, then turned his gaze toward Nine Nether and Mo Ling. Several strong warriors from the Thunder Crow clan stood nearby, their expressions unfriendly. However, in the face of their fierce gazes, Nine Nether remained unafraid and instead sneered. A defeated dog, still trying to act fierce. With Lu Sui severely injured and his battle power lost, the others were no threat. If they truly tried to charge at him, Nine Nether would have no hesitation in dealing with them to avoid future trouble. Lu Sui glared at Nine Nether with venomous eyes, but eventually held back his anger, quickly retreating to sit cross-legged on a ruined building in the distance, preparing to recover from his injuries. Several other Thunder Crow clan warriors appeared around him to protect him. Seeing this, Nine Nether lost interest in them and turned her gaze back to the light screen. She watched the young figure, and her clenched jade hand finally relaxed. Mu Chen's victory was swift and decisive, which had caught her by surprise. Based on her previous estimations, even if Mu Chen managed to stabilize his position, it would have been difficult for him to achieve a crushing victory with just his 6th grade supreme strength. If it had dragged on, there would likely have been unexpected developments. But the final result made her genuinely pleased. Clearly, Mu Chen had gained significant benefits from the first 3 layers of the body refining tower. Otherwise, he would not have been able to exert such astonishing power. I've heard that the 4th layer of the body refining tower is exceptionally mysterious. Anyone who enters will gain benefits far exceeding those of the first 3 layers. Nine Nether smiled slightly, and observing the current situation, Mu Chen's entry into the 4th layer should face no further obstacles. As for Mo Feng, his strength was already at the top level, so securing one of the 5 spots should be no challenge. It seemed that the Nine Nether Sparrow clan might become the biggest winner in this body refining tower event. At the Thundercloud platform, N01 responded to Mu Chen's words at this moment. Even the strong like Han Shan and Su Kuan had started to feel a hint of apprehension toward Mu Chen, so they naturally didn't make the first move to confront him. After a brief moment of hesitation, the powerful figures around him quickly retreated from the area where Mu Chen stood, signaling that they had no intention of attacking. Mu Chen observed this scene. Though his face remained unchanged, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. While others only saw his previous display of power when he defeated Lu Sui with a single punch, they didn't know that the strength behind that punch came from the vast power absorbed by his physical body during the first 3 levels. Before, his body was like a sponge that had absorbed all the water. That punch was the release of that water, which had caused his inflated body to return to normal. Therefore, if Mu Chen tried to perform that same attack again now, the power would definitely not reach the same level as before. This special ability of his physical body to accumulate strength was clearly a result of cultivating the dragon and phoenix body. This method could often yield unexpected effects, making it a powerful trump card. The dragon and phoenix scripture really is formidable. Chen couldn't help but admire it. The dragon and phoenix scripture was truly a remarkable classic. Based on his assessment, it was likely at the divine art level, and even among divine arts, it would certainly be extraordinary. After briefly marveling, Chen gathered his thoughts. Although no one was approaching him for trouble at the moment, he had no intention of seeking out anyone else to cause trouble. He simply stood still, waiting for the elimination to end. As for Chen knew that Lu Sui had come to find him earlier because of this person. However, now was not the best time to deal with him, so he could only temporarily postpone it. Despite this, Chen's slightly sharp gaze locked onto Chen, and the spiritual energy surging around him made him seem like a predator about to pounce, emanating a sense of danger. Chen's actions also made Chen, who was confronting Mo Feng, uncomfortable. He had to divide his attention to keep an eye on Chen, preventing him from suddenly attacking and teaming up with Mo Feng against him. This caused Chen to struggle with handling both fronts. In the end, he gritted his teeth, withdrew his spiritual energy, and took the initiative to retreat from Mo Feng's area. Mo brother, our fight has no result. Why don't we each find an opponent and secure a spot? Chen retreated while speaking to Mo Feng, glanced at him indifferently and nodded. He also knew that continuing the standoff would lead nowhere. If they truly teamed up against Chen, it would inevitably provoke his vicious nature, and when he counterattacked, they would pay a hefty price. At this moment, securing a spot for the 4th level was the most important thing. Seeing Mo Feng agree, Chen quietly sighed in relief that he quickly retreated, leaving the area where Chen and Mo Feng were. After briefly considering his options, he charged toward another talented figure whose strength was slightly weaker. Chen watched as Chen left, then stopped pursuing the matter. He exchanged a brief glance with Mo Feng, nodded, and smiled at him to thank him for holding off Chen earlier. Mo Feng's expression softened considerably at this moment. That it seemed that after Chen defeated Lu Sui, he had truly begun to see him as an equal, so he no longer remained as cold as before. Mo Feng nodded at Chen and quickly turned away, selecting his opponent. Boom! As others chose their opponents, the thundercloud platform erupted in a violent surge of spiritual energy. The waves of impact that swept through caused the space itself to tremble. Yet, amidst this chaotic and violent spiritual energy storm, Chen's area remained strangely calm. No one dared to approach within 1,000 feet of him, and he stood there as an observer, taking in the other battles while silently noting down the techniques and abilities of the top-tier fighters. Though there likely wouldn't be further conflict on this level, the body refining tower still had 2 more levels. Who could say how many more people would be eliminated before the next level? Therefore, it was crucial to understand both oneself and one's opponents. Under Chen's watchful eye, the battles on the Thundercloud platform gradually came to a close, and the final results were not surprising. Aside from Chen, Han Shan from the Rhinoceros Demon Clan was the first to defeat his opponent and secure his spot. After him came Mo Feng, and Chen quickly claimed victory as for the last spot. It was taken by Su Kuan, who had slightly lost to Han Shan in a few exchanges outside the body refining tower before. This person was also incredibly powerful. Even Han Shan had to use many methods to narrowly win against him. With Su Kuan claiming the last spot, the massive thunder platform became quiet again, with 5 figures standing tall. 5 overwhelming auras soared into the sky, as though they were competing for supremacy. However, this competition in terms of aura only lasted for a moment. The 5 figures simultaneously reined in their auras, exchanged a glance, and without hesitation, flashed forward, landing directly on the 5 thunder light cushions. Then, their gazes, filled with greed and fervor, turned toward the space beyond the thunder platform. There, radiant beams of light, like a flowing current, surged across the sky. Within those rainbow-colored lights, drops of thunder marrow shimmered with dazzling brilliance. Beyond the thunder platform, the space was in turmoil, with countless streams of light streaking by, like meteors, breathtakingly beautiful. In each of those streams of light was a drop of thunder marrow, which was the source of Chen and the others' greedy gazes. In ancient times, It was said that many divine beasts would use thunder marrow to refine their bodies, making their physiques as tough as diamond, indestructible. However, thunder marrow was rare in today's vast world. While it could be bought in large auction houses, its price was exorbitant, and once it appeared, it would be snapped up immediately, making it difficult for ordinary people to obtain. Yet now, what appeared before Chen and the others were vast amounts of thunder marrow. How could this not stir their hearts? This is the reward after securing the last 5 spots. Chen licked his lips. If they could successfully pass through this space, it would undoubtedly be a thunder marrow baptism. The body refinement it could bring was unimaginable. The body refining tower truly offered rare opportunities for body cultivation everywhere. From an external perspective, Chen had only entered the body refining tower for less than half a day, but the progress his physical body had made far surpassed what could be achieved through a year's worth of hard cultivation. No wonder the strong in the Divine Beast Plains once accounted for a third of the entire Divine Beast continent. Chen sighed. With such exceptional cultivation conditions, it was no wonder that the strength and number of experts from the Divine Beast Plains were so high. Buzz. While Chen was pondering, the 5 thunder-like cushions beneath them began to hum and shake. The cushions then slowly lifted them and carried them into the space ahead, filled with streaks of light. Upon seeing this, Chen and the others immediately braced themselves, their eyes burning with intensity. Whoosh! The 5 thunder-like cushions, carrying the 5 of them, dashed into the space. Streams of light rushed toward them from all directions, and the drops of thunder marrow contained within those streams turned their eyes bloodshot. Shan was the fastest to act. He curled his palm into a claw, then clenched it fiercely. A strong suction force erupted, directly locking onto one stream of light and forcibly pulling it in. That stream of light was redirected, truly crashing toward him like a meteor. Shan grinned that he spread his arms wide, not using any spiritual energy because he knew that thunder marrow, such a rare substance, could not be influenced by spiritual energy. The only thing capable of carrying it in the world was one thing: true flesh and blood. Therefore, to absorb thunder marrow, one had to use their own body to catch it. Boom! The stream of light crashed into Shan's chest, making a deep sound. Blood holes appeared on his chest, within which lightning flickered. Drops of thunder-like liquid quickly flowed through the blood holes, merging into his flesh. Shan's face contorted in agony as he endured extreme pain. Thunder marrow entered his body and gradually dissolved in his flesh, refining it inch by inch. The contortion on Shan's face persisted for a long while before it gradually faded. When he regained his composure, his body was drenched in sweat. The intense heat in his eyes had also subsided, replaced by a sense of dread. Clearly, the pain from refining his body with thunder marrow was something not even ordinary people could endure. A genius like Shan. His willpower was certainly extraordinary, but even so, he could only continue absorbing the thunder marrow after a brief pause. Meanwhile, Chen and the others, including Mo, began tentatively absorbing the energy, and the result was exactly the same as Shan's. Each of them twisted in pain, their bodies trembling uncontrollably as the thunder marrow entered their bodies. Once the excruciating pain passed, Mo and the others wore expressions of lingering fear, but only Chen, when he opened his eyes, had a flicker of unusual light pass through his black pupils. He lowered his head and looked at his chest, where the previously ghastly blood hole was rapidly healing. That area of his skin was faintly glowing with silver light, a result of the fusion of flesh and thunder. Chen could clearly feel that the flesh absorbing the thunder marrow was noticeably more resilient and powerful than other parts of his body. However, what made Chen thoughtful was not the changes but the fact that when the thunder marrow entered his body, he distinctly felt that most of its power was absorbed by the true dragon and true phoenix patterns that moved beneath his skin. That Chen glanced at his arms, where the true dragon and true phoenix patterns were coiled, that he could vaguely sensed that these patterns seemed unusually active, emitting an aura of desire. If he wasn't mistaken, they were likely craving the power of the thunder marrow. Really insatiable, Chen muttered to himself, finally experiencing how difficult it was to cultivate the dragon and phoenix scripture. Since he started training, he had never slacked off, even pouring enormous resources into his efforts. Yet he still had not reached the second layered. Chen estimated that if he couldn't make a breakthrough during this time in the body refining tower, his breakthrough with the dragon and phoenix scripture would likely be delayed for at least another year, which was something he found unbearable. What Chen lacked most now was time. Thus, since he had such massive resources available, he absolutely couldn't let them slip away. With this thought, Chen no longer hesitated. A resolute expression appeared in his eyes as he focused his mind. His spiritual energy surged, forming a powerful attraction that immediately drew in all the passing lights of energy. Whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, nearly 10 streams of light rushed towards him, with drops of thunder marrow rolling and rumbling thunder echoing, seeing Chen daring to absorb the thunder marrow so aggressively. Mo Feng, Han Shan, and the others were immediately stunned and quickly scattered, fearing to be caught in the shockwave. They knew all too well the intense pain of thunder marrow entering the body, so this kind of refining was best done gradually. Rushing it would likely result in their own bodies being the first to collapse under the pressure of the thunder marrow. If the thunder marrow's force was too strong, their flesh and blood would be dissolved. Boom, boom. The streams of light came whistling through, crashing into Chen's body like cannonballs. His body was immediately pierced with blood holes, and his flesh became a blur as the blood flowed. The silver thunder marrow merged into the blood and flesh. The pain was so intense that Chen's eyes instantly turned red. He gritted his teeth, sweat flowing down his face. His expression twisted in agony, and a low, muffled roar escaped from his throat, sounding almost like a beast. Hiss, hiss. He could even hear the strange sound of his flesh and blood melting as it came into contact with the thunder marrow. The sensation was as though his flesh was being dissolved. The indescribable pain nearly made Chen faint. However, just as Chen felt he couldn't endure the pain any longer, the true dragon and true phoenix patterns within him finally moved. At a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry rang out from inside his body. Buzz. The dragon's and phoenix's cries reverberated, causing Chen's vital energy to surge. Yet, the intense pain within him was swiftly suppressed. As the pain dissipated, Chen finally let out a sigh of relief. If the true dragon and true phoenix patterns hadn't acted, he would have had no choice but to give up. While he relaxed, the power of the thunder marrow that had fused with his blood and flesh transformed into streams of silver light that were completely absorbed by the true dragon and true phoenix patterns coiled around his arms. Chen opened his eyes, his pupils shining with silver light that he saw his previously mangled body rapidly healing. With his skin faintly glowing with lightning, that it was clear that he had been tempered, making him even stronger. He's not dead. Zhong Tung, Han Shan, and the others were taken aback when they saw Chen recover once again. Their eyes narrowed. The thunder marrow corrosion from before was something that would have been fatal even for them. Yet Chen had endured it and recovered so quickly. How is that possible? This guy's physical body, how is it stronger than ours? Su Kuan spoke in disbelief. They, who possessed divine beast bodies, were already incredibly strong physically. But how could a mere human's physical body be even more formidable than theirs? However, Chen paid no attention to their astonishment. He was currently looking down at his arms, where the true dragon and phoenix patterns were coiling. They had become even more vivid, and their purple-gold hue was growing brighter. The sharp dragon scales and phoenix feathers were radiating an overwhelming pressure, as if they were about to revive. Sensing the advancement of the true dragon and phoenix patterns, Chen's spirits lifted. He licked his lips and then raised his head to gaze at the space around him, where streams of light were whizzing by. In the distance, he could vaguely see a massive light circle. That should be the entrance to the 4th level of the body refining tower. This moment, the thunder light cushion beneath their feet was carrying them toward that passage. They couldn't control the cushion, so if they wanted to absorb enough thunder marrow, they had to do it before the cushion reached the passage. The other 4 clearly understood this as well. They watched Chen madly absorbing the thunder marrow. Their eyes turned green with envy. It was as though they were starving, surrounded by a feast. Despite their hunger, they had to chew their food carefully, while Mu Chen seemed to devour everything in his path with a gust of wind, consuming everything in sight. The feast was quickly entering Mu Chen's stomach. This sight was a huge blow to their morale. After some internal struggle, they gritted their teeth, and with a burst of spiritual energy, they started to increase the intensity of their thunder marrow absorption. However, this came at a cost, as a series of agonized, soul-wrenching howls echoed around them. Hearing the low growls, Mu Chen smirked slightly, then closed his eyes, his arms spread wide, and his spiritual energy surged. The pulling force exploded outward, and in an instant, the streams of light around him, as if drawn by a magnet, rushed toward his body. Seeing Mu Chen's increased absorption rate, the others, who were still howling in pain, felt their eyelids twitch uncontrollably. Unable to hold back, they cursed under their breath. "He's not even human.